Majority believe that kneeling during the anthem is inappropriate. Herschel Walker weighed in on this recently, saying that everyone, he believes, should stand for the anthem. Despite all that, GQ magazine has determined that the man who started all of this, Colin Kaepernick, is their Citizen of the Year. So what do you think? Is Colin Kaepernick the Citizen of the Year? Do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely.
You agree? Go ahead.
Absolutely. I think Colin Kaepernick has really taken a great loss to bring forth an issue of importance that's happening in America right now. I think we have some serious social and economic divides between classes and between races. I think he brought it to the forefront. I kneel to pray, and they're kneeling in protest. You don't get to skip over the First Amendment and go straight to the Second Amendment. You got to love them all.
All right. Who disagrees? Who thinks Colin Kaepernick is not Citizen of the Year? Go ahead.
So while absolutely racism is an issue and we need to bring these conversations, we have to consider the forum. And the NFL absolutely has the right to tell their players what uniform they can be in, where they can be, what they need to do, whether they need to stand or not. That's something that's part of their employment contract. And so when we're talking about the context of the First Amendment, that is that's the government, though. All right, Natasha, but they absolutely can.
Let's let Natasha speak.
Well, to your point, standing for the anthem is not part of the employment contract. If it was, we wouldn't be at this issue. The reality of it is these are public figures. All the players are. And Colin Kaepernick, who was not the first athlete, by the way. It was the WNBA. I think it was the Mystics that started taking a stance about this in their during their team playing options. But the bigger picture is that it seems as that we've circumvented, or it's been circumvented, his protests. He was protesting social justice and police brutality, or police involved in unarmed shootings. And we've gotten so far away from that conversation that that now we're talking about, should we be standing or kneeling for the anthem? Well, and we need to keep it.
All right. I'm a former NYPD lieutenant, and I'm a former Army officer. And I understand that we do have a series of social injustice that's playing out in our society. However, there's a time and a place for it. If that's your issue, address it with your legislator, not on the field. When I watch a football game, hear me out. We'll get to you in 1 second. When I'm watching a football game, I want to watch the game. I'm not interested in a protest. I think that in many instances, these players are disrespecting the flag, the troops, and our American way.
Renata, go ahead.
Well, you brought up that these players are disrespecting the troops. Colin Kaepernick used to sit at first, and then he changed it and decided to take a knee because he wanted to show respect to the military. For him,
but it's not respect.
But hold on. But let me just say this, because prior to Colin Kaepernick, you didn't see all of these other players taking a knee. We saw that happen after the president had something to say about it. So are these players in the NFL taking a knee for why Colin Kaepernick is taking a knee to protest against racial injustice, or are they just trying to get back at the president?
But can we get to the point of the issue that he was supposed to be protesting racial injustice, saying police brutality against blacks? More Caucasians are killed every year by cops than black Americans. That's an actual statistical fact. And the bottom line is, when you're on that field, you are part of the team. You are there to play football. If you want to say something about social injustice or any other thing, you have your First Amendment rights off the field.
All right, let's go back to the back corner here, guys.
Well, one of the great things about this, I'm Dr. Oscar III, is that this is America. We get a chance to express our opinions. Other countries, we wouldn't get a chance to have this sort of debate. Historical data, when you speak about the national anthem at games, didn't happen to the 1900s because it never was played at any of the sporting games. And they thought it was a great idea. So they started playing it. So it wasn't something that was embedded that had to be there. The good thing about this country is that you get a chance to express your opinions, even though it may not be the appropriate forum. But because you express those opinions, people are now listening, and now we have a conversation. So therefore, through a process or due process, we get a chance now at least to come to the table and sit down and discuss these issues to talk about what's going on. And I can say that real quickly is that one of the things, right, and people are entitled to do whatever they want to do. I'm a veteran myself and also retired law enforcement. Okay. So the thing is, we may argue about the forum or the time or whatever, but this country allows us to come in and at least express our opinions.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Hi, I'm Ryan Grodowski, writer for Red Alert Politics. I'm not a football fan. I honestly don't care about any of these people. These are multimillionaires expressing themselves. every right to. I just think that at a time in our country when so many important things are happening, I think it's a gigantic waste of time. This is not changing us. You want to change you change you from the person within, and you do it on the outside. President Trump should be focusing on his own stuff. The media should be focusing on what's going on in the administration, and I think that that is the much more important story. This week alone, Kirstjen Nielsen, the new DHS nominee from President Trump, sat there and told the Senate that she doesn't believe in his immigration agenda. No one talked about it because we were talking about things that are less important to each and every one of our lives.
All right, we gotta leave it there. So it certainly feels sometimes like our nation is more divided than it's ever been. A recent poll shows that the vast majority of voters believe that compared to 10 years ago, the bonds that hold us together are weakening. So that got us thinking about the things that we're thankful for this year as a nation, and our panel is back. So what divides us? What unites us? What are your deepest concerns, folks?
Politics divide us.
Here, let me go back here. Go ahead.
All right, I'd say that I agree, actually, that politics do divide us, and that we've really come as a country into really separating off into our two corners and completely ignoring that middle part. I mean, even when the government shutdown happened, it happened because two people just held their sides and they refused to figure out where they could actually come together and make concessions to keep the country moving forward. So we do have to actually have these conversations, and if anything, I'm incredibly thankful that I come from a place where the value is to see where you can find these common grounds with people. Even if we can't completely agree on how it gets done, we can certainly agree that people have the right to get a fair dollar for a fair days of work, that they deserve to have an education, that they deserve to be able to be healthy, that they deserve to have the next generation a little bit better off than the one previously before.
So what about President Trump in terms of his role in this?
In terms of his role in dividing the country?
Dividing, uniting, whatever you think.
Over the past 10 years, and let's say the past 8 years, this country was divided by the Great Divider, President Obama. He made more division in this country than any other president. Now, President Trump is coming in on the tail end of that, and like the young lady said over there, and Dr. Portia said it, politics is dividing us in a way that it's never divided us before. There was a time when I was a kid that people really didn't even talk about. Well, who'd you vote for? Don't worry about it. That's my vote.
I mean, even to the point where people live in neighborhoods now that seem to be segregated by thought patterns.
But now,
I'm very thankful to be an American. I'm grateful to God that we live in a country where we can have these spirited debates and still all be together as an American family. And at the same time, I want to also say I'm very thankful and grateful that we have President Trump in the White House.
Amen. Go ahead, Renata.
Well, I'm not going to clap to that. But,
it's okay.
But, you know, we can have these spirited debates, but no one listens. We all just want to be heard. So nothing is accomplished. I think if we really took the time out to listen to one another, treat each other with respect, respect each other as human beings, and actually love each other, we'll realize that we have more, wait, let me finish. We have more in common than not. Where is the love in the world? Where's the love?
I think it boils down to your family. And when you talk to anybody, no matter what side of the political spectrum they're on, if you start talking about their family, they love their families. And I think if we all kind of focus on that, what we can do to make our families better, my kids are coming home from college today. It's awesome. But everyone here loves that. And that's the one thing that we do have in common. And we need to keep our families together. We have a lot of things that attack our families, whether it's drugs or alcohol or sexual attacks. But our job, I think, is to make our family stronger. And that's what we all can. That's the one thing we all have to do.
Hopefully that's happening on this Thanksgiving Day, right? As we all get together. Go ahead.
I think, I agree with you that it starts with family. And one of the things that I find is that, especially with the media, and you hear things like, things that there's a lot of divisiveness in the country, and you expect that someone that, for example, I'm Latino and I've been in conversations with Republicans, Latino Democrat with white Republicans, that when you're sitting down on the table and actually talking to each other, you don't see any of that divisiveness you see on Fox News or CNN. You start looking for those commonalities and start listening to each other. So to America on Thanksgiving, I would tell you, try to have those conversations one-on-one with folks and see, where you can find that common ground, because we are all living here in this country trying to make it a better place.
And it's a pretty good place, right?
It is an amazing place.
All right, one last thought from Derek.
I hear people say the media this, the media that, but the truth of the matter is the media is who brings it to our living room. I don't have the ability to see what happens in Arizona. Hear me out, Rocco. I'll give you your shot. I can't see what's happening in Arizona and California unless I watch what's happening, what's playing out in the media. So I think the media does assist us as a population. But it goes back to what I said initially. Politics have been the spike that has been separating us as a country, and unfortunately, it's not getting any better. And we take in consideration Donald Trump's reticence. I think he's done a lot of good things, but I think there are a lot of things that he may have wanted to take a step back on, because that he can be a tremendous unifier, but he just really needs to come to the table and be more reticent.